Station Kappa 7 floated in the endless dark of space like a forgotten toy. It circled a frozen moon that had no name, only a number. The moon belonged to no one important. The station belonged to no one important. At least, that was what everyone believed. Inside the station, 12 humans lived their quiet lives. They woke up, ate breakfast, did their work, and went to sleep. Day after day, month after month. Nothing exciting ever happened here. Nothing was supposed to happen here. Captain stood by the observation window, holding a cup of tea. She was a woman in her early 40s with short black hair and calm eyes. She watched the stars without expression. Behind her, the station hummed with the soft sounds of machines doing their jobs. "Captain," a voice called out, "the morning report is ready." Turned to see Sergeant walking toward her with a tablet in hand. Was young, perhaps 25, with quick eyes that never seemed to miss anything. She was the communications officer, responsible for all signals coming in and going out of the station. "Anything interesting?" asked, taking the tablet. "Nothing, Captain. Same as yesterday, same as the day before." Nodded and looked at the report. Survey data, mineral analysis, equipment status, boring things that would put most people to sleep. She signed off on it and handed it back. In the research lab, Doctor was looking at rocks. She had been looking at rocks for 3 years now. She picked them up, scanned them, wrote notes about them, and put them in boxes. Anyone watching would think she was a dedicated scientist with a passion for geology. They would be wrong, but they would never know it. Was a small woman with glasses and messy hair. She hummed to herself as she worked, seeming lost in her own world. When Lieutenant walked past her lab, she waved at him without looking up. Did not wave back. He rarely did anything unnecessary. He was a tall man with a thin face and eyes that seemed to look through people rather than at them. He walked the corridors of the station slowly, checking every door, every panel, every shadow. It was his habit. Some might call it paranoid. He called it careful. The other 8 crew members were scattered throughout the station. Some worked on maintaining the machines. Some prepared food. Some exercised in the small gym. They all knew each other well. They had lived together in this small place for a long time. Far away, in a part of space that humans had not yet reached, the Dominion was making plans. They were a proud race. They had conquered dozens of worlds and believed themselves to be the greatest civilization in the galaxy. Their soldiers were strong, their ships were powerful, and their commanders were ruthless. When they wanted something, they took it. Commander sat in his war room studying a map of human space. He was tall even for a with skin and 4 eyes that glowed faintly yellow. His armor was decorated with medals from 100 battles. He had never lost. "Reports," he commanded. A younger officer stepped forward. "We have identified a weak point in human territory, Commander. A small station at the edge of their space. 12 personnel, minimal defenses, old equipment." Looked at the image of Kappa 7 on the screen. It was small and ugly, not worth much in itself, but it would serve a purpose. "This will be our message to the humans," said. "We will destroy this station and show them that their borders mean nothing to us. They will learn to fear the—" The officers around him nodded in agreement. This would be an easy mission, a training exercise, really. The humans at that station would not even have time to call for help before they died. Assigned 3 warships and 200 soldiers to the task. It was more than enough. It was probably too much, but believed in overwhelming force. It was better to crush an enemy completely than to give them any chance of survival. The fleet departed the next day. Back on Kappa 7, life continued as normal. Held a staff meeting in the small conference room. Everyone attended, sitting around a table that was barely big enough for them all. "Quarterly review," announced. "Does anyone have concerns to raise?" "The water recycler is making strange noises again," said one of the maintenance workers, a man named. "I can fix it, but I need parts we do not have." Put in a request, I will approve it. The food supplies are running low on variety, said the cook, a cheerful woman named. We have enough to eat, but everyone is getting tired of the same meals. Also approved, order what you need. The meeting continued with small problems and small solutions. No one mentioned anything unusual. No one seemed worried about anything. They were just people doing their jobs in a place far from home. That night was on duty in the communications room. She monitored the signals from nearby space, mostly automated messages from satellites and probes. Nothing required her attention. She was about to make herself some coffee when her screen flickered. An encrypted transmission was coming in, high priority, from Earth. Sat up straight and began the decryption process. It took several minutes. When she finally read the message, her expression did not change. She picked up her communicator. Captain, you need to see this. Arrived within minutes. She took the tablet from and read the message carefully. Her face remained calm, but something changed in her eyes. Something sharp appeared there, something that had been sleeping. Wake everyone, said quietly. Full assembly in 10 minutes. May I ask what this is about, Captain? Looked at her young communications officer. For a moment, she almost smiled. We are going to have visitors, the kind that does not knock before entering. Understood immediately. She began making calls. 10 minutes later, all 12 crew members stood in the main hall. They looked the same as always. Scientists, engineers, support staff, ordinary people in ordinary clothes. But the way they stood was different now. The way they looked at their captain was different. There was no fear in their eyes. There was anticipation. Stood before them, hands clasped behind her back. 3 days from now, a strike force will arrive at this station. 3 ships, 200 soldiers. They believe we are defenseless. They believe we are afraid. She paused, looking at each face in the room. Let us prepare to teach them otherwise. No one asked questions. No one showed surprise. They simply nodded and began to move, each person knowing exactly what they needed to do. The trap was being set, and they had no idea what was waiting for them. The 3 warships dropped out of faster-than-light travel like predators arriving at a wounded animal. They were large, dark vessels covered in weapons and armor. Each one could destroy a small city in minutes. Against a tiny research station, they were like hammers being used to kill a fly. Commander stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Iron Fist, and looked at Kappa 7 through the viewport. The station looked even smaller in person than it had in the images. He felt almost insulted that Earth had sent so few people to guard their border. Open communications, ordered. I want to speak to whoever leads that station. The screen flickered and Captain appeared. She looked calm, almost bored. She was sitting at a desk with a cup of tea in her hand. This is Captain of Station Kappa 7. How may I help you? Blinked his 4 eyes in surprise. He had expected fear, begging perhaps, not politeness. I am commander of the Dominion. You are in violation of our territorial claims. You will surrender your station immediately, or you will be destroyed. Took a sip of her tea. I see. That is quite serious. May I ask what specific territorial claims we have violated? Our records show this area as neutral space. Felt his anger rising. This human was treating him like a minor annoyance, not a conqueror with 200 soldiers ready to kill her. You have 5 minutes to evacuate your people to escape pods. After that, we will board and take control of the station. Anyone who remains will be killed. 5 minutes is not very long, said thoughtfully. Could we perhaps discuss this further? I am sure there has been some misunderstanding. Ended the communication with a growl. He turned to his officers. She is stalling. Launch the assault teams. Across all 3 ships, soldiers loaded into drop pods. They were eager for battle, though they knew this would hardly be won. 12 humans against 200 warriors. It would be over in seconds. The drop pods launched. streaking toward the station like metal rain. On Kappa 7, set down her tea and stood up. She touched her ear, activating her communicator. All units, this is the captain. The guests are arriving. Move to positions. Throughout the station, the crew transformed. The cook opened a hidden panel in her kitchen wall and pulled out a rifle that looked like it could punch through starship armor. The maintenance worker typed a command into his tablet, and sections of wall slid away to reveal turret systems that were definitely not standard research equipment. Doctor pushed her rock samples aside and pressed her hand against a hidden scanner. Her entire lab shifted, revealing a weapons engineering bay underneath. She smiled as she powered up systems that they could not even imagine. Lieutenant was already in position near the main airlock. He wore no armor, carried no visible weapon. He simply stood in the shadows and waited. The first drop pod crashed into the station's outer hull. Soldiers poured out, their weapons raised, ready to slaughter frightened scientists. They found an empty corridor. "Spread out," the squad leader ordered. "Find the humans, kill anyone who resists." The soldiers moved forward in practiced formation. They had done this many times before. Board a station, eliminate defenders, claim victory. Simple. The lights went out. For a moment, there was only darkness and the sound of soldiers breathing heavily. Then the emergency lights came on, casting everything in dim red. One soldier was missing. "Report." No answer. Another soldier turned around to check behind them. When he turned back, two more of his squad were gone. No sound, no struggle. They had simply vanished. "Contact we have." The voice cut off. Something moved in the shadows, fast and silent. Worked through the squad like a surgeon cutting out a disease. He did not fight them. Fighting implied a contest between equals. This was something else entirely. He flowed around their clumsy attacks, finding weak points in their armor that they did not know existed. Each strike was precise. Each movement was efficient. In 30 seconds, 12 soldiers lay on the ground, unconscious or worse. Touched his communicator. Airlock 1 clear. Across the station, similar scenes were unfolding. A group of 20 broke through a secondary entrance and found themselves in what looked like a storage area. They advanced confidently, checking corners, covering each other. Stepped out from behind a container, her massive rifle humming with energy. "You should not have come here," she said. She fired. The never had a chance to return fire. Each shot took down a soldier. She moved between cover positions with practiced ease, never staying in one place long enough to be targeted. The tried to coordinate, tried to pin her down, but she was always one step ahead. When the last soldier fell, checked her weapon's power level and nodded with satisfaction. Storage bay clear. On the bridge of the Iron Fist, Commander watched his assault fall apart. The status indicators for his ground teams were turning red one by one. Dead, disabled, missing. "What is happening down there?" he demanded. "Commander, we are losing contact with all teams. They report heavy resistance, but..." "Heavy resistance from 12 scientists." "Sir, the reports are confusing. They say the humans are not fighting like normal soldiers. They say they move like shadows. They say." An explosion rocked the station. On tactical display, one of his remaining teams simply disappeared. Had activated the station's hidden defensive systems. What looked like maintenance hatches were actually weapon ports. What seemed like power conduits were actually targeting systems. The station itself had become a weapon, and she controlled all of it. "Thermal charges detonated in Section 7, she reported calmly. 16 hostiles eliminated, moving to secondary targets. Sat at her console, fingers dancing across keyboards with incredible speed. She had taken control of the communication frequencies. Now, instead of coordinating their attack, the enemy soldiers were receiving contradictory orders. Go here. No, go there. Retreat. No, advance. Their chain of command was chaos. Communications disrupted, she said. They cannot organize effectively anymore. Stood in the station's command center, watching everything unfold on her screens. Her face showed no emotion, but inside she felt something she had not felt in years. Pride in her team, satisfaction in a plan working perfectly. The remaining soldiers tried to retreat to their drop pods. They found them disabled. They tried to call for extraction. Their signals went nowhere. They tried to fight. They died or fell unconscious where they stood. Within 1 hour of the assault beginning, it was over. 200 soldiers had attacked Station Kappa 7. 0 had achieved their objective. Most were unconscious. Some were dead. All of them had learned a terrible lesson. Commander stared at his screens in disbelief. His entire ground force, his elite warriors defeated by 12 humans. It was impossible. It had to be impossible. But the evidence was undeniable. His communications officer spoke with a trembling voice. "Commander, we are receiving a transmission from the station." Appeared on screen again. She was not holding tea this time. She looked directly at with eyes that held no mercy. "Your soldiers will be returned to you," she said. "The ones who survived, but I have a question for you, Commander. Do you wish to continue this fight, or are you ready to listen?" Felt something he had not felt since he was a young soldier facing his first battle. He felt fear. Commander's fear quickly turned to rage. He was a conqueror, a veteran of 100 victories. He would not be humiliated by a handful of humans on a worthless station. "Prepare orbital bombardment," he ordered. "We will destroy the station from space. If we cannot take it, no one will have it." His weapons officer hesitated. "Commander, our soldiers are still down there." "They failed. They are no longer useful. Fire." The Iron Fist's weapons powered up with a deep hum. Energy beams lanced down toward Kappa 7, enough firepower to melt through steel and rock. The beams hit an invisible wall and scattered harmlessly into space. Leaped from his chair. "What is this?" "Commander, they have shields. Military-grade deflector shields. Our scans did not detect them." "How is this possible? This is supposed to be a research station." But it was not a research station. It had never been a research station. Every system, every wall, every piece of equipment had been designed to hide the truth. And now, with nothing left to hide, the station revealed itself. Hidden armor plates slid into place along the hull. Weapon turrets emerged from concealed ports. Sensor arrays activated that could track a fly from 1,000 kilometers away. Kappa 7 transformed from a helpless target into a fortress. On the station, Captain watched the bombardment fail with quiet satisfaction. She opened a channel to, "Commander, I had hoped you would make the wise choice. I see I was wrong." Snarled at the screen, "You think your shields will protect you forever. I have 3 warships. I will wear you down eventually." "You have 3 warships, agreed, for now." She ended the communication. She said, "Begin Phase 2." Lieutenant was already moving. He walked to a section of the station that looked like a storage bay. Inside sat 4 objects covered with tarps. He pulled the covers away, revealing small, sleek vessels. Stealth shuttles, completely invisible to sensors. 3 other crew members joined him. The maintenance worker, the medic, who handled life support systems. None of them looked like soldiers. All of them moved like deadly weapons. They boarded the shuttles without a word. The bay doors opened, and the shuttles slipped out into space. The Never saw them coming. On the Iron Fist continued his bombardment. Shot after shot hit the shields. The shields held. His frustration grew with each failed attempt. "Commander," his sensor officer said nervously, "I am detecting something strange." "What?" "I am not sure. Our sensors are showing ghosts, shadows that appear and disappear. It might be a malfunction." It was not a malfunction. Shuttle attached to the Iron Fist's hull without making a sound. A cutting tool burned through the armor in seconds, creating an entrance. 4 humans slipped inside. They moved through the ship like smoke. Crew members walked past them without seeing anything. Security systems failed to detect them. They were trained to be invisible, and they were very good at their training. Engineering section whispered, "Disable their weapon systems. Take care of the engines, communications. I will handle the bridge." The team split up. Meanwhile, Doctor was demonstrating what her rock research had really been about. Hidden beneath her lab was the control center for the station's secret weapons, not defensive shields and turrets, something much more powerful. "Activating the lance," she reported. A massive energy weapon extended from the station's underside. It had been disguised as a mining drill. It was, in fact, capable of crippling a warship with a single shot. Targeted the smallest ship, the Night Blade, she fired. A beam of brilliant white light crossed the distance in an instant. It struck the Night Blade's engine section with surgical precision. The ship did not explode. It simply went dark, drifting powerlessly in space. "One down," said with a small smile, "2 to go." On the Iron Fist, alarms began to sound. Systems were failing across the ship. Weapons went offline. Engines dropped to minimum power. Communications became static. Screamed at his crew, "What is happening? Fix it." "Commander, there are intruders on board. Reports coming from all sections. They are sabotaging our systems." "Then find them and kill them." Security teams rushed through the corridors, searching for the invisible enemy. They found nothing, but they heard things: footsteps in empty hallways, whispers in dark rooms, their comrades disappearing one by one. The humans did not try to kill everyone. They did not need to. Fear was a more effective weapon than bullets. By the time reached the bridge, the crew was already terrified of shadows. He appeared behind the navigation officer without warning. The officer screamed, simply tapped a pressure point on his neck, and he collapsed. One by one, the bridge crew fell. Some were knocked unconscious. Some were restrained. None were killed. Worked with cold efficiency until only Commander remained standing. Drew his personal weapon, a plasma pistol that could burn through armor. He pointed it at the human with shaking hands. "Stay back." Looked at him without expression. He did not seem concerned about the weapon pointed at his chest. "You should put that down," said calmly. "You might hurt yourself." "I will kill you." Moved, fired. The shot went wide, hitting a console. Before could fire again, was beside him. A quick strike to the wrist made drop the pistol. A sweep of the leg brought him to the floor. Stood over him, looking down. "I told you," said. The third ship, the Storm Herald, tried to run. Its captain had seen enough. The Night Blade was disabled. The Iron Fist was compromised. He had no intention of sharing their fate. The Storm Herald turned and accelerated toward the edge of the system. It hit the minefield that had deployed, while everyone was distracted. The mines were not designed to destroy ships. They were designed to disable them. Electromagnetic pulses knocked out the Storm Herald systems. It drifted to a stop, helpless. "All 3 ships disabled," reported. "No critical casualties on our side." On Kappa 7, Captain allowed herself a moment of satisfaction. 12 against 3 warships and 200 soldiers. Complete victory in under 3 hours. But she knew this was only the beginning. They would not accept this defeat. They would return with more ships, more soldiers, more weapons. This battle was won, but the war was just starting. She looked at the screens showing the 3 disabled ships and their frightened crews. "Bring Commander to the station," she ordered. "I think it is time we had a real conversation." His voice came through the communicator. "Understood, Captain. He does not seem happy about it." "Good," said. "Unhappy people listen better." She began preparing for the most important meeting of her life. Commander sat in a small room on Station Kappa 7. His hands were not bound, but guards stood at the door. Not that he could have escaped. Not that he wanted to try. He had seen what these humans could do. He had no desire to see more. The door opened, and Captain walked in. She carried 2 cups and set one in front of. "Tea," she said, sitting across from him. "I find it helps difficult conversations." Did not touch the cup. "What do you want from me?" "I want you to understand something, and then I want you to take that understanding back to your people." "Understand what?" "That we underestimated you. That is obvious." Shook her head slowly. "You did not just underestimate us. You made a fundamental error. You looked at this station and saw weakness. You looked at 12 scientists and saw easy prey, but you never asked the important question." "What question?" "Why would Earth put only 12 people on a station at the very edge of their territory? Why would they leave such an important position so poorly defended?" Leaned forward. "Unless, of course, it was not poorly defended at all." Felt cold despite the room's warmth. "Who are you people?" "We are called Obsidian Unit. We do not exist in any records you can access. We do not wear uniforms. We do not accept medals. We are the shadows that Earth sends when normal soldiers are not enough. Special forces, every empire has them." "No," said, "not like us. Let me tell you about the people you attacked today." She pointed toward the door. "Lieutenant, the man who captured you. 6 years ago there was a civilization called the... They were building a weapon that could destroy stars. Infiltrated there alone. He lived among them for 8 months, gathering information, sabotaging their project. When he left, their weapon program was destroyed and they never knew he was there. The still exists today because he stopped their weapon before Earth had to respond with force." Said nothing, but his 4 eyes widened slightly. "Doctor designed the defense systems you saw today. She also designed the weapons that ended the border wars 15 years ago. You have probably never heard of the border wars. That is because weapons ended them so quickly that most species do not even know they happened. 3 fleets destroyed in 6 hours. The enemy surrendered rather than face her creations again. Impossible. We would have records of such a conflict." "You would not. We made sure of that. We are very good at making sure." Stood and walked to the window looking out at the stars. "Sergeant broke the encryption codes of the Dominion's allies 5 years ago. We know everything they know. Their troop movements, their battle plans, their secrets. She did it in 3 days. Your best code breakers could not have done it in 3 centuries." She turned back to, "And me? I was once held prisoner by a species that wanted to start a war with Earth. I spent 4 months in their custody. By the time I left, their leadership had been replaced, their military had been reformed, and they signed a peace treaty that still holds today. I did not escape, Commander. I simply finished my mission." Felt something breaking inside him, not his body, his certainty. He had spent his entire life believing that they were supreme, that no species could match their strength, their cunning, their will to conquer. Now he sat in a small room, defeated by 12 people, and learned that those 12 people were the least of what humanity could offer. "Why are you telling me this?" he asked. "Because I want you to understand that what happened today was not luck. It was not an accident. We were prepared for you. We are always prepared. And we are not unique. There are other teams like us. Dozens, maybe hundreds. We are stationed throughout human space, waiting for threats exactly like you." Sat back down, her eyes holding his. "The Dominion has a choice to make. You can continue to push against human borders. You can send more ships, more soldiers, more weapons. But every time you do, you will face people like us. People who have spent their entire lives learning how to fight and win against impossible odds." Or asked, though he already suspected the answer. "Or you can go home. Tell your leaders what happened here. Tell them that Earth's borders are not to be tested. Tell them that the humans they thought were weak are anything but. And perhaps, someday, we can find a way to exist as neighbors instead of enemies." Was silent for a long time. His pride screamed at him to reject her offer, to promise revenge, to swear that they would return with such overwhelming force that no amount of skill could save these humans. But he remembered the darkness in the corridors of his ship. He remembered his soldiers vanishing without a sound. He remembered a single human standing calmly before him while he pointed a weapon at his chest. These were not ordinary enemies. These were something else entirely. "If I deliver your message," said slowly, "what guarantees do I have that you will not simply destroy my ships when we try to leave?" "None, but consider this. We could have killed everyone today, every soldier, every crew member, you. We chose not to. We disabled your ships. We captured your people. We showed you what we can do without actually destroying you. That was not mercy, Commander. That was a message. We are dangerous, but we are not cruel. We fight to protect our people, not to conquer others." Stood and offered her hand, a human gesture of respect new. "Take the message, go home, and remember us when your leaders discuss their next move." Looked at her hand for a long moment, then slowly he took it. "You are a strange species," he said. "You look so weak, so fragile, but inside." "Inside we are survivors," finished. "We have been fighting for our existence since before we reached the stars. We will not stop now." The next day the ships were repaired enough to travel. The surviving soldiers were returned, along with their unconscious comrades. Commander stood on his bridge, looking back at Kappa 7 as his fleet prepared to leave. The station looked small and harmless again. The weapons were hidden. The shields were invisible. It was just a research outpost, studying rocks on a frozen moon. But knew the truth now. He would never forget it. As the Iron Fist turned toward space, he began composing the report that would change his people's understanding of humanity forever. Behind him, Kappa 7 grew smaller and smaller, until it was just another distant light among the stars. Watching, waiting. Ready? The journey back to space took 3 weeks. 3 weeks for Commander to think about what he had seen. 3 weeks to write and rewrite his report. 3 weeks to wonder if anyone would believe him. His ships limped into the home system with damaged engines and wounded pride. The Dominion High Council summoned him immediately. They wanted answers. They wanted to know how 3 warships and 200 elite soldiers had failed to capture a tiny research station. Stood before the 7 council members in the Great Hall. Behind him, the banners of conquered worlds hung from the ceiling, reminders of glory, reminders of what they believed themselves to be. "Explain yourself," the High Chancellor demanded. He was old, his skin wrinkled with age, but his eyes were still sharp and cruel. "You were sent to deliver a message of strength. Instead, you returned defeated." "The station was not what we believed, High Chancellor. It was a trap. The humans stationed there were not scientists. They were their most elite warriors. They called themselves Obsidian Unit." Murmurs spread through the council chamber. "Elite warriors," another council member scoffed. "Against our soldiers, the humans are weak. Everyone knows this." "I believed the same thing," said quietly. "I was wrong." He told them everything. The assault that was crushed in minutes, the shuttles that appeared from nowhere, the weapons that disabled his ships with single shots, the human who walked onto his bridge and defeated him without even drawing a weapon. When he finished, there was silence. Then the High Chancellor laughed. "You expect us to believe this fantasy? 12 humans defeating 200 of our finest? Impossible. You were outmaneuvered by a handful of researchers, and now you invent stories to protect your honor." "It is not a story. I saw it with my own eyes." "Then your eyes failed you, or your courage did." The Chancellor stood, pointing with disgust. "You are relieved of command. You will spend the rest of your days as a warning to others who fail the Dominion." Guards moved forward to take away. He did not resist. He had expected this. The truth was too strange for them to accept. They would have to learn it for themselves. As he was led out, he turned back one final time. "Send more ships if you want. Send your entire fleet. But remember my words when they do not return. Remember what I told you about the shadows that wait in human space." The doors closed behind him. The High Council discussed failure for hours. They decided to send a proper war fleet, not 3 ships but 500, not 200 soldiers but 20,000. They would crush this obsidian unit and prove that they were supreme. The fleet began assembling the next day. Far away on Kappa 7, life had returned to normal. Doctor was looking at rocks again, though now she smiled sometimes while she worked. Fixed the water recycler that had been making strange noises, cooked dinner and complained about the lack of variety in their supplies. Walked the corridors, checking every door and shadow. Some habits would never change. In the communications room, monitored the signals from across the galaxy. She caught fragments of transmissions, carefully hidden but not hidden well enough. She decoded them with ease. "Captain," she said, "you should see this." Read the decoded messages without expression. They were building a fleet, 500 ships, 20,000 soldiers. They were coming for revenge, for honor, for conquest. When asked. 3 months, maybe 4. Nodded slowly. She walked to the observation window and looked out at the stars. Somewhere out there, an armada was gathering. The largest fleet that had ever assembled, aimed at destroying a single station and the 12 people inside it. Any normal person would be terrified. Was not a normal person. She touched her communicator. "All personnel, this is the captain. Please join me in the main hall." A few minutes later, her team stood before her. They already knew something was coming. They could see it in her eyes. "They are assembling a war fleet," announced. 500 ships, 20,000 soldiers. They will be here in a few months. No one spoke. No one looked afraid. They simply waited for their orders. "I have sent a message to Earth Command. Reinforcements are being dispatched. Other Obsidian teams are being activated. By the time they arrive, they will find more than just us waiting for them." She paused, looking at each member of her team. These people who had become her family over years of service together. These warriors who had chosen to spend their lives in the shadows, protecting humanity from threats most people would never know existed. "But that does not change our mission. We are the first line of defense. We will hold this position until support arrives, or we will make the enemy pay such a price that they will never threaten human space again." Lieutenant spoke, his voice calm as always. "What are your orders, Captain?" Smiled. It was not a warm smile. It was the smile of a predator who had just been told that more prey was coming. "We have 3 months. Let us use them well. I want new weapons ready. Things they have never seen. Keep monitoring their communications. I want to know everything they plan before they plan it. Begin training scenarios. When they arrive, I want our response to be perfect." "And the rest of us?" asked. "The rest of you will help prepare this station for the fight of its life. We will make Kappa 7 into a fortress that will break their fleet against us like waves against a mountain." The team dispersed, each person moving with purpose. There was work to do. There was always work to do. In a quiet corner of a young officer sat alone in a medical room. He was one of the few ground soldiers who had survived the assault on Kappa 7. His body had healed, but his mind was still damaged. A doctor entered, tablet in hand. "The council wants your report. They need to know what happened down there." The young officer stared at the wall. His eyes were empty, seeing something far away. "They smiled at us," he whispered. "Before it began, before the lights went out, they smiled, like they had been waiting for us, like we were, expected, like we were a gift someone had sent them." The doctor wrote something on his tablet, looking concerned. "They moved like shadows, like ghosts. I shot at one of them. I know I hit him, but he just kept coming. He looked at me and he smiled, and then there was nothing, just darkness." "You were defeated by superior forces. It happens in war." The officer finally turned to look at the doctor. His eyes were wild with a fear that would never fully fade. You do not understand. They were not superior forces. They were something else, something we have never seen before, and they let us go. They could have killed everyone, but they let us go. Do you know why? The doctor shook his head. Because we were not worth killing. We were not enemies to them. We were just practice. He turned back to the wall, lost in his memories. They are coming for us, not now, but someday, when they decide we are worth their attention, and when that day comes, nothing will save us. Nothing. Back on Kappa 7, Captain stood at the observation window, watching the stars. Behind her, her team worked with quiet efficiency, preparing for the storm that was coming. She thought about the young soldiers they had defeated, the ones they had let go. She hoped some of them would find peace. She hoped their people would listen to the message she had sent. But if they did not listen, if they came with their fleet and their army, then she and her team would be ready. They were Obsidian Unit. They were humanity's shadow. And shadows do not fear the light. They simply wait for it to fade. Raised her cup of tea in a small toast to the distant stars, to the enemies gathering there, and to the battles yet to come. Let them come, she said softly. We will be here, we will always be here. And somewhere in the vast darkness of space, 500 ships began their journey toward a tiny station, and the 12 extraordinary humans who called it home. The story was far from over. It was just beginning.